US-17. Yeah, alright. Today we're taking a look at a new US highway for North Carolina. Not new in the sense of built, but new for us to look at. It is US-17, and this one runs along the eastern coast area of North Carolina. Alright, let's have a look at the map. As you can see, US-17 is a north-south pretty curvy road, and it goes from the North Carolina-South Carolina border near Carolina Shores, and it goes up through Wilmington, Jacksonville, and New Bern and other towns, up to the Virginia-North Carolina border, where it continues up into the Hampton Roads. You're watching the Xavier 456. I post new highway content every week. If you like this kind of content, then go ahead and smash that like button. And if you really like it, then go ahead and smash that subscribe button, and turn on those notifications. Alright, I must remind you that you can request your exit or intersection down in the comments below. The next 3 episodes we'll be doing are US 25, US 29, and US 52. Alright, let's have a look at northbound US 17 in North Carolina. So here we are entering into North Carolina, and we get a really unique welcome sign. This one actually looks pretty cool. And we get a welcome to Brunswick County as well, because of course counties don't want to neglect themselves and they want to welcome you whenever they have the chance. Here's our first mileage sign on the journey. As we can see, Charlotte is on the top line at 14 miles away, and Wilmington is on the bottom at 50. Perfect mileage sign, great job. Here in Charlotte, we're meeting with North Carolina 130, and we can see it's getting signed for Charlotte and Whiteville, which I think are the right choices. And then once we get another mileage sign, it is this time a 3-liner, and we got Bolivia at 9 miles. This isn't South America, but oh well. Leland is in the middle at 22, and Wilmington is still on the bottom at 29. Alright, good job. Now we're becoming concurrent with NC87. We can see it's getting signed south for Southport, and we're becoming concurrent with it northbound, getting signed for both Leland and Wilmington. Because again, as we discussed in the I-140 video, the first video of this series as a highway, apparently NCDOT does not want to neglect Leland at all. And we can see that here too at the beginning of I-140, getting signed east for Topsail Island, Jacksonville, and New Bern. And that's absolutely right, that's the faster way to get to those places. US-17 goes through Wilmington. 17 North is getting pulled through for both Wilmington and Leland, as Leland right there is a slap-on in between the arrows. And 87 North splits off of us and continues towards Elizabethtown, which is the right choice from here. Here we are meeting US 74 and 76. And you can see they're both getting signed west for Lumberton, which is favoring US 74, and we're joining up with East 74 and 76. And interestingly, the words East are both capitalized, but not in all caps. They're for some reason in lowercase as well, and you can see they're all signed for Wilmington, and that's still right. Here's where eastbound US 74 splits off, and also gives connection to north US 421 and north NC 133, and apparently now they're getting signed for Wrightsville Beach and Clinton. So Clinton is for 421 and Wrightsville Beach is for 74, and that's okay, I think. And we are now still with US 76 East, and South US 421 is also coming to us. And we can see we're all signed for Wilmington and Carolina Beach. Carolina Beach is for South 421. Here we're crossing a bridge over the Cape Fear River, and we've got a nice view of downtown Wilmington up there. Here's where US 421 splits off of us to continue south, and it's signed for Carolina Beach. And East 76 and North 17 are now signed for Wilmington downtown. Well, we aren't actually going to the downtown, otherwise known as the historic riverfront. Another road is going there, Business 17, but we should be signed for Jacksonville now, honestly. Here we're meeting US 117, and it is also getting signed south for Carolina Beach along with NC 132, and it's getting signed north with North 132 for University of North Carolina, Wilmington. And we're pulled through East 76 and 17 for Wrightsville Beach. No, why did we get rid of Jacksonville? We should be seeing Jacksonville on there. And also, that 17 shield is completely dwarfing that 76 shield. It's like it's about to eat it up or something. Here is where US 76 East splits off, and it's getting signed for Wrightsville Beach. That's the reason we put it on that sign back there. And we are now getting a straight up arrow for Jacksonville. And that's right. Here's the other end of 140, in this case it is NC 140, as we discussed in the first video of the series. And we've got signage for 2 I-140 and 2 I-40 for Myrtle Beach, Benson, and Raleigh. So this is like the only overhead sign east of Benson, or south of Benson, if you are talking actually directionally, that still contains Benson. I thought NCDOT got rid of those and just signed Raleigh. Get rid of this Benson. Well, I mean, it's fading away because these signs are really old and they've seen better days. But meanwhile, North 17 is now getting signed for Topsail Island, Jacksonville, and New Bern. Awesome stuff. We're skipping for New Bern. Blue Star Highway! And here's our next mileage sign. It's a 3-liner, and it contains all 3 places that we saw on the overhead back there. Topsail Beach at 24, Jacksonville at 37, and New Bern at 73. A palindromic distance between Jacksonville and New Bern, which looks cool. Here we are meeting NC210, which TheDerpHog did a video about, and we can see it's getting signed west for Rocky Point. You know what Rocky Point is? An unincorporated community! I know 210 doesn't go through anything huge for a long time, but you should not be signing an unincorporated community. And also, go check out TheDerpHog's video if you want to see what happens next. And this is actually where NC210 is becoming concurrent with US-17 to continue eastbound. And when it splits off, it is signed for Surf City and Topsail Beach. And I think those are fine. And here we get our next mileage sign. It is a 2-liner, and we're getting Jacksonville at 22 and New Bern at 57. Good. That's agreeable. In Jacksonville, we are meeting a business route North 17 to West NC 24 for Jacksonville, and we're getting pulled through North 17 and East 24 for Camp Lejeune and Morehead City. Those are both for 24, and New Bern is for us. Still alright. And here is the ramp to NC 24 for Camp Lejeune and Morehead City, and we're pulled through for New Bern. Here is another business route for US-17, and this one goes into Maysville, and we can see it's signed to South NC 58. And here's where US-17 proper meets NC 58, getting signed for Cape Carteret and Emerald Isle, and we're still going through for New Bern. And once the business route comes back into us, we meet 58 again, and this time it's getting signed for Pollexville and Trenton. So those are not good choices. TheDerpHog actually talked about this, and we should be seeing something else for 58, and honestly, I'd say Kinston. Kinston should be what's on this sign. And now we enter New Bern, and we meet with US-70, and we're becoming concurrent with it eastbound. And we can see we're signed for New Bern and Morehead City. Morehead City is for East 70. And 70 West gets signed for Kinston. Honestly, that should say Raleigh, because this is going to become I-42 in the future. Here is where we're splitting off of US-70, now signed east for both Havelock and Morehead City. And North 17 and East 55 are getting signed for New Bern and Washington, although those are both for US-17. We're using the next control from here, Washington NC, and that is correct. When 55 East splits off of us, it's getting signed for Bayboro, and I know it's not going through pretty much anything throughout the rest of its run, so Bayboro could be okay, and we are getting pulled through for Washington. On our next mileage sign, we can see Vanceboro is on the top line at 16, and Washington is 33 miles away. But then, once we get another mileage sign after Vanceboro, Washington gets the top line treatment, and then Williamston gets thrown to the bottom line at 42. And yeah, Williamston's like 4,000 people less than Washington, but it still makes sense. In Washington, we are meeting with US 264, getting signed for Washington and Greenville. And you know what? I would actually agree with that, because 264 basically goes nowhere eastbound. And off this interchange, NCDOT is not NCDOTing, and we're getting New Bern and Williamston for US-17 in both directions. Although on the mileage sign, we get Williamston on the top line, and Windsor is on the bottom line at 33. And as I discussed in the previous video on US-13, that's where 13 and 17 only split off. Not to mention that Windsor only has a population of 2,283 people. So we should be seeing something else on there. For example, I think we should be seeing something for 17, like we're on it right now, and sign Elizabeth City. In Williamston, we are meeting with US 64, and we can see it's getting signed west for Williamston and Tarboro, although Williamston's actually for us, and it's getting signed eastbound for Plymouth. And I think that's probably the best choice, although you could argue Manteo. And here's where 64 East does split off, and it's getting signed for Plymouth and Manteo. And we're getting pulled through North 13 and 17 for Williamston and Windsor. Once again, that should probably be Williamston and Elizabeth City, because I want to favor US-17 here. In Windsor, we have quite an interesting split-off. normal 17 is actually turning right here, and it's actually going past Windsor on a slower kind of route to connect to bypass 17, which we will be taking to save some time. And we can see that the bypass is getting signed for Ahoskie and Edenton. And Edenton shouldn't be there. That should be Elizabeth City, but Ahoskie is for 13, and that's the right choice. And Windsor is getting signed for normal 17 because it's literally heading to the town, and also with business 13 here. So now we're on the bypass, and we can see North 13 is splitting off, and business 13 gets signed as well, Windsor and Ahoskie, and as I said in the 13th video, those are the right choices. On our next mileage sign, we can see Edenton is on the top line, and Elizabeth City, and that I would say is pretty much the right way to go. In Edenton, we are meeting with NC32, and it's just getting signed for Edenton. And then after Edenton, we're getting a one-liner with just Elizabeth City at 15. And honestly, I think you could slap a bottom line on there and put Chesapeake on it, because that would be awesome. Here we are meeting a bypass of 17 getting signed for Chesapeake, Virginia, and that's absolutely right, because there are many cities there. And 17 North is getting signed for Elizabeth City, as it is more of the business route. So we will be taking this normal 17 route, and we're meeting with US 158. It's getting signed east for Camden and the Outer Banks, and there's also an afterthought for Waterfront. And we're also getting a straight-up arrow for South Mills. So South Mills is actually for US 17, and guess what? That's way smaller than the Hampton Roads! What are you doing, NCDOT? No, not South Mills. Sign Chesapeake. But then on the mileage sign, it gets even worse. Now we're getting South Mills on the top line at 14, which is favoring us. But now Sunbury is on the bottom line at 26, and that's actually favoring US 158 westbound. No! No way, Jose! You should not be signing something so small that you'd be confusing traffic over 17 and 158. Sign Chesapeake! Ugh, NCDOT. Okay, so now we come into the bypass again and we form regular 17, which is getting signed south for Hertford and Edenton, although we'll get to that later. We're getting signed north for Chesapeake, Virginia, finally. And I'm glad. And here is where US 158 splits off, and it's getting signed for Sunbury, as opposed to something else like Murfreesboro or Roanoke Rapids. I'd say Roanoke Rapids, honestly. And we also get an afterthought for Speedway, and that's actually for Dixieland Speedway. When we move further up, we can see that we're now in a future Interstate 87 corridor, although we have been on this future corridor for quite a long time. I haven't just showed any signs until now, but it's quite interesting. Here's our last mileage sign in North Carolina, and we can see Portsmouth is on the top line at 27, and Hampton is on the bottom at 56. So NCDOT being a little literal here, because these are two Hampton Road cities that we, US 17, go through. And I think that could be okay. I kind of just have a beef for not having Norfolk on there for some reason, but... And now we enter Virginia, and that ends it for northbound 17, so we're going to turn around and talk about southbound US 17 in North Carolina. So here we are coming into North Carolina from Virginia, and once again we get nation's most military-friendly state. Do I even need to say anything, North Carolina? And right away, we enter the future Interstate 87 corridor, and it continues like this for quite a long time. On our first mileage sign southbound, we can see South Mills is on the top line at 7, and Elizabeth City is on the bottom at 22, and that's agreeable. Here we're meeting US 158 and becoming concurrent with the eastbound, and you can see getting signed west for Sunbury as opposed to Murfreesboro or Roanoke Rapids or whatever. And we can see Speedway and Afterthought again, and Elizabeth City is signed for the both of us heading south and east. Well done. Here's where 158 splits off, along with normal 17, and gets getting signed for Elizabeth City. And this time we're actually going to take the bypass, and it's signed south for Hartford and Edenton. Why are we getting Edenton and only Edenton? I know it's still a little sizable, but we only meet one state route there. We should be seeing, like, Williamston or something on there, or even New Bern, honestly, because that is the next big city from here. Although you could honestly sign Williamston, because you have a US highway intersection there, so who knows what you could sign here. But then on the mileage sign, we only get the two places that were listed on the overhead, Hartford and Edenton. What is this, NCDOT? No, I want to see a three-liner with something like Williamston. I don't know, but maybe Edenton could be okay for now, but I don't understand it. But after Hartford, we do get Williamston on the bottom line at 38, and we can also see that they're both on a brown sign. And I mistakenly said that this related to some sort of base. It actually means that it's a historic town, and this is pretty unique for North Carolina. But honestly, I think from here you should start putting New Bern on the bottom line, because New Bern is 30,000 people and way more famous than the towns we're going to be going through before it, so I think you should be putting New Bern on the bottom line from here. Here we are meeting NC32 for Edenton, and that's it. And here we get another historic town mileage sign. This time Windsor and Williamston are thrown in it. Once again, we should be seeing New Bern on the bottom line because that is way bigger than the both of these. Here we're coming into US-13 and it's getting signed north for Hosty and Windsor for the business route. And once we come into 13, I actually forgot to show this mileage sign in the 13 video. But we get Williamston on the top line at 10 and Washington in the middle at 33. And those are both historic towns. And New Bern is on the bottom line at 71 miles away. Well done here. I'm glad you're recognizing that New Bern should be the primary, and not any of the other towns listed. But then we split off of 13 along with the business route for 17. We're getting signed Williamston, Washington. Are you kidding me, NCDOT? We're getting Williamston signed for the business route, I do know, but we're only getting Washington on the South 17 here. We should be seeing New Bern as the primary for 17 here. Not Washington! Do you hear me? And here we are meeting US 264 for Washington and Greenville. The only reason we've been signing Washington, and once we get a mileage sign, we get Wilmar on the top line at 8 and New Bern on the bottom at 32. Good work here. Although after Wilmar, we now get New Bern on the top line at 23 and Jacksonville on the bottom line at 59. Here we are entering New Bern and we can see NC55 is joining into us and it's signed east for Bayboro. And we're getting 70 east for New Bern and Havelock. Why is Havelock the only thing on there? We should not have Havelock, and instead Morehead City. And here we're splitting off of 70 east, and it's getting signed for New Bern and Havelock. We're already in New Bern right now, so you shouldn't have New Bern on this sign anyway. Sign Havelock and Morehead City for 70. And here we're getting South 17, West 70, and West 55. For Kinston and Jacksonville. And here we are splitting off of US 70, and we can see we're signed south for Jacksonville. And we only have a sign for the next exit on US 70 on the overhead, and we should be seeing a pull through as well. On our next mileage sign, we have Maysville on the top line at 13 and Jacksonville on the bottom at 28. I mean, that could be agreeable. Although, once we get another mileage sign after Maysville, we have Jacksonville on the top line now at 11, and Wilmington is on the bottom line at 62. Let's go, NCDOT. Awesome stuff. Here in Jacksonville, we are meeting South Business 17 to US 258 for Jacksonville downtown, and South 17 to NC 24 getting pulled through for Camp Lejeune, Morehead City, and Wilmington. The first two are 424, and Wilmington's for us. Here's where NC24 splits off, and also signed to US 258 for Richlands and Kinston. I don't exactly know about Richlands too much, and Kinston is at least the bottom line, and that's for 258. And at 17 South is signed for Wilmington still. Here we're meeting 210, and it's getting signed east this time for Topsail Island and Sneed's Ferry. Once we get a mileage sign, it is a 3-liner now, and we're getting Holly Ridge, Wilmington on the middle line at 38, and Charlotte is now the bottom line at 75. No! What is this, NCDOT? Why are you using Charlotte as the bottom line here? And oh my god, this shows how provincial you really are. Honestly, right now, I think you could have Wilmington be on the bottom line because it's sizable, really big, and just, there's not too much stuff big at the moment down the road for a long time until like Charleston or something, or famous until like Myrtle Beach, which could be on the bottom line, but I say Wilmington be on the bottom line. Although, once we get another mileage sign, we get Hempstead on the top at 13 and Wilmington on the bottom at 29. At least this is the right mileage sign. Here we're meeting 210 again, and we're seeing it signed for Surf City and Topsail Beach. This is another part of 210, and it's a little weird of a route, I can tell you. But once we get another mileage sign, we get the same situation as earlier. Hempstead, Wilmington, Charlotte. No, not Charlotte. And since I would say we're close enough to Wilmington at this point that you should put Myrtle Beach on the bottom line at this point, because Myrtle Beach is famous. What are you doing, NCDOT? Why are you being this provincial? Here's where 210 splits off westbound sign for the stupid unincorporated community of Rocky Point, and we're still signed north-south for Wilmington. At least that's right. Here we're meeting the beginning of NC 140 sign to I-140 and I-40 for Charlotte, Myrtle Beach, and Raleigh. Although Charlotte and Myrtle Beach are for US-17, the faster way to get to it, and Raleigh is for 40, and that's awesome. And we're getting 17 South Wilmington, as that's our slower route. Here's a brand new interchange. It's with NC 417 North. This is Military Cutoff Road. But now we're getting signed South 17 to East 74 and to 76 for Wrightsville Beach. So now they're favoring 76 and 74. Why is Wrightsville Beach on this sign? We should be seeing something else like, I don't know, keep Wilmington on it. Here's where 74 and 76 go to the east to turn left, and 74 goes west to turn right, and we are joining with 76 going west and us southbound. Here's another gantry where the signs are really worn out, and we can see 117 and 132 signed for State Port and Carolina Beach, and the other way for University of North Carolina, Wilmington. And we now just get pulled through South 17, West 76 for nothing. Here we're getting a ramp to I-40 and East 74 and North 421 and North 133 for Battleship North Carolina and Clinton. So for some reason we're throwing a tourist attraction on this sign, Battleship North Carolina, which was a really important figure in World War II, and Clinton is signed for North 421, which I guess could be okay. And we're getting a quad highway concurrency ourselves, South 17, West 74, West 76, and South 133, 2 Brunswick County beaches, don't know why, and Lumberton. Lumberton is actually 474, and that's pretty much okay. Here is where we're splitting off of 74 and 76, signed west for Whiteville and Lumberton, and that's okay. And 17 South is now signed for 2 Brunswick County beaches. Where in heavens did Myrtle Beach go? We should be seeing Myrtle Beach on this sign and not Brunswick County beaches. Why did you change your mind all of a sudden? But then we get a mileage sign right after this exit, and NCDOT once again throws this whole route off the rails by putting a 2-liner with Bolivia at 14 and Charlotte at 30. Why aren't you signing Myrtle Beach, for heaven's sake? Oh my god, NCDOT, you are the worst. I mean, you're not as worse as Pennsylvania, but you're still down there. Sign Myrtle Beach. Although right after, we get this interesting mileage sign, and it's the reason we put Brunswick County beaches on the overhead. We get a mileage sign devoted to the Brunswick County beaches, and we see it's Holden Beach, Ocean Isle Beach, and Sunset Beach all on this sign. This is just a one-off mileage sign, but why aren't you signing Myrtle Beach anymore? Here is the other end of I-140, getting signed north for Topsail Island, Jacksonville, and New Bern, and those are right for North 17, and we're getting South 17 287 for Charlotte and Myrtle Beach. At least Myrtle Beach is finally making an appearance on an overhead, and I'm glad to see it. And on the mileage sign, we see the same thing, with Charlotte at 25 and Myrtle Beach at 57, and that's right. Although, once we're past Charlotte, we now get this mileage sign, with Myrtle Beach at 29, and Charleston at 129. Holy moly, North Carolina, you've done a big jump here. That's a rare North Carolina W. And in fact, it's even better because if you would have checked out other people's videos, like DerpHog's video on 17, North Carolina outclassed their southern neighbor because what they're doing is worse. And here we are welcomed into South Carolina. And we are ending this video right here, and we're going to move on to the Xavier 456's the way it should be for US-17 in North Carolina. So northbound, right from the jump, I think we should be signing Wilmington, Jacksonville, New Bern, Washington, Williamston, Elizabeth City, and Chesapeake. And southbound, we should be signing Elizabeth City, and then I would start co-signing New Bern along with Williamston and Washington. I would co-sign New Bern because that's larger than Williamston and Washington combined. And then after Washington, I'd sign New Bern, and Jacksonville, then Wilmington, and then finally Myrtle Beach. Alright, and that'll be it for this video of NCDOT Provincial Lovin. Thanks for watching, and next week we're going to be taking a look at US-25, our first US highway in the west of the state. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you then. May peace be with you.